Good day to everyone. Greetings from Finland, Päijät-Häme region, and Lahti, the green capital of Europe, and from Sibelius Hallwell, where I am being at the time being. My name is Marina Erhola, and together with Josep Antto, professor from the ISGlobal, Jana Halonen, Research Program Director from the National Institute of Health, and Professor Antoni Plasencia from the Barcelona Institute of Global Health. I welcome you to this webinar. We are sharing this webinar together. The present seminar was officially approved as part of the EU Green Week, and it is co-organized by the Finnish Päijät-Häme Joint Authority for Health and Welfare, which I am the CEO of, and the Barcelona Institute for Global Health. And it brings together the science and political leadership from both the city of Lahti, Finland, and Barcelona, Spain. It is showcasing examples how to make cities good for human health and good for the planet, and at the same time. We are planning for these activities now at the time we are at the same time tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. So this gives us an extremely important, even historical window for promoting planetary health and human health at the same time. The European Green Week was officially launched last Monday with a high-level opening event dedicated to citizen science for zero pollution, and it took place virtually in the city of Lahti, in our city. This high-level event included an inaugural speech of the mayor of Lahti city, Mr. Pekka Timonen, and we are honored of having Pekka Timonen here also today as one of our speakers. One of the central points of the EU Green Week is the recently adopted EU Action Plan toward the zero pollution ambition, one of the key actions of the European Green Deal. It will help to create a toxic-free environment across the EU by better monitoring and reporting and preventing and remedying pollution from air, water, soil, and consumer products. The Green Week is also aimed at supporting the post-COVID-19 recovery by helping to rebuild a more sustainable EU economy, creating job opportunities and reducing social inequalities which are on rise due to the pandemic epidemics. So it is also to look at other relevant European Green Deal initiatives, such as the Climate Initiative, the upcoming chemical strategy, as well as initiatives in the fields of energy, industry, mobility, agriculture, fisheries, health, and biodiversity. In this context, that our webinar was conceived as an effort to strengthening the planetary health approach. The webinar builds up on the previous good collaboration between the Barcelona Institute for Global Health and the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare during the Helsinki Declaration on Planetary Health, which took place on year 2019, December 2019, and it was the starting phase for that started already in 2018, and we have been doing these activities with very close collaboration with Professor Josep Antto and also Professor Tariq Hatella ever since. So it's a great pleasure for me to see some continuity also in these actions. Also, this seminar builds on the seminars that have been going on with the Barcelona Institute for Global Health and the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare in terms of continuation of the Severo Ochoa European webinar series, which have been quite famous, and there have been several of them already launched. In coherence with the concept of planetary health today, we want to be highlighting the need of developing effective, sustainable urban designs to promote health and prevent cities from becoming carbon-dense urban locations, while at the same time ensuring the preservation of the planet we live in. So we have dual ambitions and dual goals in all the activities we are carrying out here in Finland also at the time being, and especially here in Lahti. We want to promote at the same time the health of the planet and also the human health. And it is very possible to combine these two approaches, and this makes these approaches extremely fascinating and also interesting to all of us. The dialogue between Lahti and Barcelona is enriched by the contrast between northern and southern European cities. And also we have as an example a big city and then a medium-sized city, Lahti. And this is the end of my presentation, and now I give the speech to Professor Josep Anton, my friend from Barcelona. Please, Josep.
Thank you so much, Marina. Such a big pleasure to share with you and all our colleagues and speakers this seminar. Well, as Marina said, this is part of the European Green Week, and we thought that it could be a good opportunity to organize a seminar trying to focus a bit on the dialogue between science and politics. And this is the origin of the program and the agenda that you have in front of you. As you can see, and you already know, the program has been organized in two parts. The first part, the first session, focuses on the science approach, and then the second one in the political implementation. And this is with the hope to stimulate an inspiring dialogue between scientific experts and political leaders. And this is for our speakers to enrich us during this seminar. As Marina said, Lahti and Barcelona are in many respects two very different cities. And we think that this contrast is useful for mutual learning and collaboration. But at the same time, both cities share the ambition to increasingly implement sustainable urban solutions to promote the human health and the health of the planet. I am always very impressed to see how much work has been done in Lahti. It's how much work is being done in Barcelona. Lahti has gained now prominence with the green capitality of Europe, and it's in this way enlightening cities to meet this goal of carbon neutrality for the next decades that we must achieve all together. So in this way, I think both cities are examples of stewards of our planet Earth. Well, in this first session, we will focus on two types of scientific approaches and contributions. One is in urban health and urban mobility, and the other one is in health in nature. And as you will see in the next slide, this will be developed in the first session by Professor Mark Neuhausen, which is a research professor at ISGlobal and director of the Urban Planning and Environmental Health program, and by Professor Tariq Hatella, professor of medicine, emeritus professor in the University of Helsinki, and a scientific leader in the field of allergy and nature. So obviously, and it's anticipated in the agenda, translating science into policy involves tremendous social, economic, and political challenges. And I think that this will be perfectly complemented with the interventions of our speakers, the mayor of the Lahti city, Mr. Pekka Timonen, and the deputy chief architect in the Barcelona City Council, Mrs. Silvia Casorran. Let me just finish just recalling that a month ago, a large number of Nobel laureates and other experts issued a call for action after the well-known Our Planet, Our Future summit. It was followed by thousands of people in streaming. And they concluded the call with a sentence that I think is very pertinent for our program today. They say, politicians and scientists must work together to bridge the divide between expert evidence, short-term politics, and the survival of all life on this planet in the Anthropocene epoch. The long-term potential of humanity depends upon our ability today to value our common future. So we hope this European Green Week webinar today to be a humble contribution to this call for action. So with this, I finish this part of the presentation and I pass the floor to Professor Neuhausen. Just before that, let me to remind you few technical issues. You know that the webinar is being recorded. All your microphones are deactivated to facilitate the seminar. Please submit your questions and answers. We have a large audience of participants. Many of the participants have participated in previous activities. We thank to all you for your interest and being here, and the seminar will be highly enriched with your questions and suggestions. So please use the Q&A button to make your contributions. And those of you that want to have the subtitles, use the closed caption button in the bottom right of your screen. Now the time is yours. Mark, please go ahead.
Oh, many thanks, Joseph Maria. That great introduction. I'm so glad to be here. You know, it's my favorite topic, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone who's interested. And now somehow my presentation doesn't go into presentation mode. First of all, I live in Barcelona, so I'm very familiar with Barcelona, but I've never been to Lahti, so I'm hoping to go. Lahti is part of our EC-funded Go Green Routes project, and it's one of the 6 cities in the Go Green Routes project. I mean, funded by the EC European Commission. So I'm hoping to visit soon. But my view of Lahti is it's a beautiful city, kind of almost paradise. But of course, it may be slightly different in the winter, but I don't know. First of all, happy World Bicycle Day. It's June the 3rd every year. It's the bicycle day, and I hope that you all got to where you are with your bicycle, or take out your bicycle a bit later to celebrate this specific day. And also to celebrate, I will put a bit more emphasis on the bicycle in my talk, just to go together with the theme. Now, as what I said, I'm more familiar with Barcelona, and you know what we have in Barcelona is an awful lot of cars. Like in many cities, we have some of the highest traffic density in Europe, and you know that doesn't always create nice situations. We know nowadays that there is a strong relationship between how you design a city, how much money you put into certain things, and what will come out of it. So if you design and put a lot of money into infrastructure for cars, you get a lot of people driving around cars. That leads to air pollution and noise. All the asphalt that you have, the infrastructure causes heat island effects. There is not enough green space, and of course, you know, people are then not so physically active, and they're also more stressed out, what also then leads to disease. For example, in Barcelona, we've estimated that there are 3,000 premature deaths each year as a result of what we call suboptimal urban and transport planning practices. I mean, around 600 deaths per year due to air pollution and also to noise. It's quite a noisy city. So on the other side, if you design a city for walking and cycling, then you also get more people to cycle, and that's also what we're seeing. And if you get more people to cycle, you get less air pollution, less noise. You need less space for cyclists, people are less stressed, and you reduce thereby also disease and premature mortality. That, in particular, like about a city like Barcelona, you know, the cars at the moment use 60% of public space, what we have, because roads also include in in public space, but there are only 1 out of 4 journeys are actually by the car. Now, this kind of issue has been a bit more put in the spotlight with the coronavirus epidemic, because, you know, we now know that our public space is pretty precious. I mean, and also, you know, people try to find a way to get through the city in a fairly safe way where they don't catch the coronavirus in this way, COVID-19. And, you know, for example, cycling has taken on. Many cities, what we've seen, have started to rethink for how they use public space and what we're trying to do in the future. I mean, and I'll give you a couple of examples, like Paris trying to keep the cars out. London wants to create more car-free zones. Milan announced more cycling lanes to reduce car use. And altogether, I mean, what you see is that there is a particular interest in increasing the number of cycling lanes or the length of cycling lanes in cities. And this is one of the first studies that evaluated this extension of cycling lanes that we've seen in cities. And they looked at 100 cities, and in 20 cities, there was an extension of the cycling lane infrastructure by about 11 kilometers. And what they found that in particular in the cities where they increased cycling lanes, there was a larger increase in cycling than in some of the other cities where this was not happening. And this varied between 11 and 48%. So this shows the importance of creating infrastructure for cycling to get people actually to cycle that. You know, what I know from the pandemic, also the lockdowns, that people quite enjoyed it. I saw the city in a different way. They could hear the birds singing. There was less air pollution. So, I mean, there are positive aspects coming out, showing that we actually can make changes in our urban environment, what's important. And of course, people go to on the street, I mean, and you know, organized demonstrations. This is, for example, in Barcelona, where we've got strong groups, I mean, that organize demonstrations on a regular basis. An example, an area in Barcelona where there's a lot of air pollution, where they want to change the space that is actually there. So I think we need to look at some solutions, and I quickly run through a few. What we need to do is that this, looking at changes in land use, because there's this clear connection between how you use the available space and how people get around. Reduce car dependency, of course, important, and also move more to public and active transportation. The greening of cities is addressed in the next talk. Now, in Barcelona, we've got good initiatives going on, the so-called super block. On the left side, what you can see on this picture, you see the current situation of what's happening in Barcelona, a grid system, one-way streetcars up and down. The idea of the super block is cut out 4 junctions, so only allowing active transportation inside there, and also greening. Originally, the plan was to have 500 super blocks. We did an evaluation. What would be the impact of implementing 500 super blocks in Barcelona? We estimated that you could prevent almost 700 deaths per year in Barcelona. At the moment, the plan is slightly different. You may hear later in the session. And there are about 28, I think, new super blocks being planned at the moment. So we got some way to go, but you can see some real changes. I mean, this is the Sant Antonio super block on the top, where you can see the picture is what it was before with cars, and at the bottom, what it's after, showing a much better environment actually for people to walk and cycle and sit down and enjoy green space. Another urban model that's been promoted is the 15-minute city by Paris. Carlos Moreno is behind this. Here, the idea is to that all your destinations, including work, school, shops, should be within about 15-minute walking or cycling ride of your residence. The way that's being filled in Paris is to put more destinations around in suburbs where there are people only living, so making it more attractive. But of course, you can think that this may be also a radical rethink where we live in cities, because often we see the rich and the poor segregated, and this also suggests that we should mix much more in that way. The other urban model is becoming car-free. Hamburg is saying that they're going to become car-free by 2034. There are quite a few cities already that might want to make the city center car-free. Again, where you stimulate more active transportation like walking and cycling. And there are already some neighborhoods. This is Vauban in Freiburg. It's a neighborhood with sustainable housing, car-free, a wonderful place to be, also with quite a lot of green space and people cycling around, walking around, and there's a tram system to the city center. So this is possible. I mean, it's possible, but we need to invest in this kind of places. Now, many of the car journeys that are currently being taken are less than 5 kilometers. I mean, and they can be easily cycled. You know, and so we should rethink and try to stimulate cycling. We know cycling it's very good for health. There's more physical activity. It reduces premature mortality, cardiovascular disease. People weigh less generally when they cycle. Also, often what's happening is that you know, people don't have time to go to the gym. So when you cycle, you actually can combine going to the gym with commuting. Also, it's less air pollution, noise, zero CO2 emissions, of course, what's very important, and also creates more happiness. Cyclists are normally happier. We also know that the benefits of physical activity well outweigh any risk of air pollution or accidents for cyclists. And unfortunately, when one cyclist gets hit by a car, it's on front page of the newspaper, but you know, when you save hundreds of people because they do more physical activity, that still doesn't make the news. So that's what we need to think of. The bike sharing systems that have been introduced in many cities have got people to cycle, including here what we've seen in Barcelona, where it's highly successful. And if it's hilly, you know, the electric bike actually works quite well. And it's not only for when it's hilly, but also when it's quite windy. Myself, I come from Holland and it can be quite windy. And so if you go against the wind, an electric bike can actually be quite helpful. Also in places like the Netherlands and Belgium, electric bikes are nowadays used for long distance cycling up to 20, 30 kilometers to go to work. This is one of my favorite pictures. It's a progressive town in the Netherlands, Utrecht, where you see many people cycling and very few cars on the road. I mean, that here actually they should turn it around, put all the cyclists on the main road and the cars on the cycling path, because that would be a better distribution of the space. So, you know, I think we have a lot of evidence. We know what is good. It's actually making the changes is extremely difficult. So that's why I'm looking forward to the second part of this session, where actually implementing things are. Or the other thing is also getting information across to people. And, you know, a lot of what us scientists are doing are putting it into scientific publications that are read by very few people. But also here at ISGlobal, we start the Knowledge Initiative. And one of the things is also making the information easily accessible to people. And for example, we just created this comic, what came out yesterday, and I've been showing you you know, some pictures from this particular comic to actually get more people involved in this particular issues. The website of the comic is on the top. It's free. You can download it. I think Ales can put it in the chat as well if you're interested. Well, it discusses a lot of the issues in a fairly easily and accessible way, and that's also fairly good fun. Now, if you want to have more the hard science, there's a review paper that I did not so long ago, but I'm happy to send to you, or you can also get it freely online. And I recently did a book where I put together a number of different blogs, seeing for how the COVID-19 pandemic influenced city thinking, in particular in terms of urban planning and mobility in relation to health. So many thanks. I'm looking forward to the next talk on green space, because I think active transportation and green space go well together to improve urban health. And then, of course, in the second part, for how to implement these issues, how to formulate the policies to make it all happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for this very nice presentation. I think you need to convince the journals that whenever we submit a paper, we need to put a comic as an appendix.
That's an excellent idea. I'm sure that Paul will be very happy with this.
will increase scientific communication. So thank you so much for your presentation. So we move now to the second part of this first session, which is Professor Tariq Hatella. So Tariq, the floor is yours.
All right, can you hear me, Josep?
Perfect.
Well, some 30 years now, I have been trying to find out what are the reasons for the slow epidemic of allergy and asthma taking place after the Second World War. And in general, the reasons of the increasing numbers of so-called non-communicable diseases. And greetings from Helsinki. It's sun is shining after a very long winter. The cultural evolution is built on the biological evolution, which is also influenced by it. And humans learned to use fire in a controlled way some 1 million years ago. And this has profound consequences on food, light, and heat, and gave impetus also to brain development. So everything is interlinked, but we have been moving more and more to the so-called gray space. And to refer what Joseph has been saying, that this means kind of a slow divorce from our original evolutionary home, the green and blue space. And when we think about the different chronic diseases of the modern time, we often in our logistic regression analysis, we think about the risk factors. What is increasing the risk and how much? But in fact, it might be that we should look more of the protective factors. We are losing the protective factors, and they come from the green and the blue space. They come from the soil and natural waters. And they are mostly microbial in origin, but also biogenic chemicals. I come back to that.
Ari, sorry, I'm not sure you have put the slides in the full screen, maybe?
Okay, let's see.
I have a question in the chat suggesting me that...
Is that better?
Probably, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Large group of chronic diseases have been on rise in modern societies, and they all share some common features like microbial imbalance, also called dysbiosis, long-term immune dysfunction, and low-grade inflammation. Allergy and asthma are just indicators, but we are living the pollen season now, and it seems quite crazy that we do have these inappropriate inflammatory responses to innocent particles from nature, the pollens. There's no biological sense in that. But in this disease group under the umbrella, allergy and asthma are joined with many other chronic non-communicable diseases like inflammatory bowel diseases, diabetes, obesity, several neurological conditions, even depression, cancer, and cardiovascular diseases. Of course, the genetics is very important, and the manifestation of any clinical disease depends on the individual genetic and epigenetic regulatory factors. But I already say at this point that most of the increase of this group of diseases is caused by changes in environment and lifestyle. Human body is protected by two layers of biodiversity, the microorganisms which are residing in the living environment, and those on the external and internal surfaces of the body. The inner layer is dependent on the microbial colonization from the outer layer, and that comes from air, soil, and natural water. We are speaking a lot of the microbiome, but we are not speaking much of the so-called biogenic chemicals, the so-called volatile organic compounds like limonds and terpenes and so forth, which we breathe all the time when we go to a natural environment. When you go to the forest or a green environment, you smell. What do you smell? You smell these volatile organic compounds. And we know from laboratory testing at this point, we need more clinical evidence, but nevertheless, these compounds do have an effect at the cellular level on energy production and waste circulation. So the effect of the natural environment is very total and comprehensive. We connect to the green and blue with senses and activities and host what we breathe, eat, drink, and touch. And these activities in this diverse environment provide the human body with the microbiota which we need for immune regulation. Well, human body is in fact an ecosystem of species, also called holobiont. Holobiont, did you know that you have follicle mites on your face? You all do have follicle mites on your face, Demodex folliculorum, Demodex brevis. You are full of living organisms. Your body is an ecosystem of species. The biotically diverse exposure, it calls for epigenetic signaling, and that's becoming more and more important because it seems that the epigenetics, it's like the biological software. Our genome is the biological hardware if we compare it to the computer. But the epigenetics is the software which is very adaptable to the exposome, what we are exposed 24 hours. And that adapts the immune regulation to create resilience. If it does not create tolerance or resilience, we may face the inappropriate inflammatory reactions, or we may face infection, which are invasive and spread fastly in our body. And the end game is there. The holobiont either survives or returns to natural rotation, depending on this response: resilience, infection, inflammation. The urban environment and changes in lifestyle have increasingly disconnected children from soil, natural air, and waters. And here you see on the left-hand side, you see this small boy in the urban setting. And the guy here is so well protected that he is pretty much ready to fly to the moon. On the right-hand side, you see the same guy here in the natural environment, and you can imagine how different is what he tastes, what he smells, what he breathes, what he touches. It's totally different. So we have just accomplished the so-called Finnish Allergy program, which was taken for prevention. We wanted to take steps from treatment to prevention. For primary prevention, we emphasize that no avoidance of environmental allergen exposure, if not really proven necessary. We should strengthen our immunity by increasing contact with natural environments, especially by physical exercise and healthy diet. Also for secondary prevention, for those who already have the disease, there is a lot to be done in terms of prevention. First, of course, as doctors, we treat the inflammation in skin or in airway mucosa, for example, with corticosteroids. And now we also do have access to so-called biologics, which may cut down the inflammation circle at some specific points. And those new biologicals are very effective, for example, in inflammatory bowel diseases, in asthma, in psoriasis, but the problem is that they are very expensive. Then what is also gaining more and more space is allergen immunotherapy. And now when I'm speaking about allergen immunotherapy, but we also might speak about immunotherapy altogether, because it's also used, of course, different kind of modifications in some forms of cancer. So immunotherapy is coming in more and more. Here you just see one example when a child is getting so-called oral immunotherapy with milk. So you give the patient the same substance to which he or she is getting the symptoms, or from which he or she is getting the symptoms. When we start this oral immunotherapy, there may be first some unfavorable immune responses and symptoms. But over time, when gradually the dose is increased, the body creates so-called suppressive regulatory T cells, which then stop the basophils and mast cells to degranulate, and the patient becomes symptom-free. This principle of immunotherapy is coming to the medicine more and more. So what was the result of the Finnish allergy program, which was emphasizing immunological resilience, allergy health, and prevention? Allergy diets have dropped 50%. Occupational allergies have dropped 50%. The hospitalizations because of asthma, they have dropped 75%. Of course, the treatment, the care has also improved. As you see here, the blue line is coming up, meaning that more and more patients with asthmatic symptoms, they are detected at early stage of the disease and they are treated more effectively. Nevertheless, the change is quite huge. And then when we take the costs, because money talks, you see that when we take the year 2017 or 18 and compare it to the year before the program, we have saved about 30%, which meant at the annual level about 200 million euros. And here we see the cumulative cost savings of the Finnish allergy program, the yellow columns here. When we calculate all these annual savings together, the net sum is 1.2 billion euros. 1.2 billion euros less used in treatment and taking care of asthma and allergy in Finland. Most of the savings, they did not come from direct healthcare costs, but they came from disability costs. The patients did have the disease, but they were more or less living normal life. Their days of work collapsed and the disability pensions decreased significantly. And if you scale this result up to the European level or global level, you can see the potential of this approach. Well, do we have something else than just a real-life intervention like the allergy program? Do we have some controlled data that biodiversity, intervention with biodiversity would really be helpful? And this also comes from Finland, from so-called Adele group by Aki Sinkkonen, Heikki Hyöty, and Maria Ruuslund. And there they took different kind of daycares. And in the intervention, the daycare yards were enriched with vegetated soil blocks, peat blocks, and by gardening the soil. And then they have the controlled daycares there as well. And in only 4 weeks' time, they were able to show that there was an enrichment of the microbiota on the skin, and there were favorable changes in the inflammatory cytokines. And this is really interesting, because only in 4 weeks' time we can see positive effects. This means really that we can prevent allergy and asthma and probably all those other non-communicable diseases to some extent. So, dear friends, we need nature-based solutions to answer the social challenges and ensure sustainable development in terms of breastfeeding, daycare models, public catering strategies, green infrastructure, and so forth. We know that immunological resilience against the diseases which I have been talking about, it develops from nature contact with better nature relatedness. The key issues are diet, the nutrition, physical exercise, and then when at the same time we have the state of the environment okay, we can prevent the illnesses. But the whole society must be with us, because we have to have an effect on lifestyle and behavior, on food, mobility, housing, use of time, hobbies. And then we have to have the societal structures, what kind of cities we are building, the green and blue infra, what is the quality of air, water and soil, and food policy. And the last but not least, we have to focus on green economy. We have to get and obtain livelihood from nature-based wellness services. The Finland presidency of the EU in 2019, it ended up with
one minute, Tariq.
Thanks a lot. It ended up with a seminar and the Helsinki Declaration. So human health depends on our ability to sustain planetary health. But we also need really evidence. We need interventions planned with communities and citizens to produce results and outcomes which then have an effect on political decisions and models of learning. And yes, Lahti is the green capital this year. And we are really figuring out how to continue and putting up a Lahti plan with the main aims for people and planet to improve public health. Asthma, diabetes, obesity, depression are example conditions which we try to have an effect on. Preserve nature, stop biodiversity loss, mitigate warming of the climate, connect health and environmental sciences for education, research and communication, and make this change economically sustainable. So, my dear friends, we must take the nature step for health, and these are the messages for all of you. Take nature close for health. Everyday decisions matter. What you eat, drink, touch, breathe, and how you exercise. Not so complicated after all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Tari, for this very, very nice and interesting presentation with very moving incredibly well from basic science, so T regulatory cells and tolerance, to changing cities. I think this is excellent information for today. And can you connect your micro and camera, Mark? So we may have 5 minutes for questions before we move to the other part. And I have just a couple of questions. I want to put one to each of you. And for you, Mark, it's obviously the COVID-19 has been an opportunity to see changes in a tangible and rapid way in our cities. And you have presented some of the beneficial interventions, but also there are some worrying trends. No? So the increase in the promotion of electric cars and also the decrease in the public transportation. How do you see these trends evolving in the next years?
Yes, I mean, you know, at the moment, electric cars are being promoted, in particular by the car industry, because, you know, it doesn't matter if they sell a fossil fuel car or an electric car, it's still a car, so they've got something to sell. And I believe it's not the best way forward. I mean, we need to get reduced car use in cities and promote more public and active transportation. Outside cities, this is a different story, by the way. But so I don't see it the way forward. But what's for me worrying in particular is also for the what we've seen during the pandemic is that more people buy online, for example. So we got the big tech companies providing more goods. What actually what we see is more deliverable vehicles on the road, so you get more kilometers driven, what creates air pollution, etc., and uses up a lot of space. So, and that also kills off the local high street. So we see a lot of local shops going under. You know, and what we would like to have is actually lively neighborhoods where you got lots of shops together, schools, work, etc. This kind of land use mix is very important. And so that's for me a worrying trend. We've very much more need to stimulate the local economy and buy locally in your own shop, in your own street to keep the neighborhood alive, I think, and to reduce the mobility by delivery vans, etc. So that's you know, and then also the question of teleworking, if it's good or bad. I think it has positive and negative aspects, but I don't know what the overall net benefits will be. I mean, you can look at it in different ways, but that's what we see as well. But I think what we've seen during the pandemic is that, you know, many cities were trying to reduce car use, green cities. That's happening a lot as well. And the pandemic has accelerated this trend, I think. And I'm interested to see hear from the cities a bit later if this is true. But this is kind of my perception of things.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mark. We have one question for Tariq from the audience, which is the evidence about the microbiota of children improving when they spend time in the parks near to the green and the nature?
About the microbiota, we don't really know. It's there are no controlled interventions to show whether this greenery near us or a little bit further down, what does it really do to the microbiota of the children? In general, we are just opening the path for controlled studies.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we have still one or two questions that we will retain for the second part to keep with the agenda. So if you don't mind, we thank you both again, Tari and Mark, for this nice presentation. And we move forward, and I pass the floor to Jana Halonen. Thank you, Jana and Toni.
Thank you, and good afternoon to all. Now we are moving our discussion to the politics and policies in the context of planetary health. And as said, I'm Jana Halonen. I come from the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare, and I'm chairing this part of the event with Professor Antonio Plasencia, who is Director General of the Barcelona Institute for Global Health. And promoting and implementing the available solutions are good that are good for both for human and nature. Involves series of complex social and economic challenges that relate to politics and decision making. So we will now hear some of the challenges that have been met at the local level and some examples on how they could be addressed. Our first speaker here is from Lahti, Finland, the European Green Capital 2021. Pekka Timonen has been the mayor of Lahti since 2018, and so he has been on the driver's seat, leading Lahti not only towards this European Green Capital Award, but also towards more sustainable living in a city. The Zoom is yours now, Pekka.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here today. And as already said earlier, I have this privilege and opportunity this year. Lahti is co-hosting the whole Green Week as the European Green Capital, and I've been able to attend already several sessions, including the opening ceremony and opening session. And I must say the topic of today and this session here is very much in line on what is now under discussion also in other panels and other sessions. There is a growing awareness of biodiversity and also a growing awareness that we must look into the sustainable world and Europe in a more holistic way, which is very interesting. This has been a big change. So, dear everyone, I would shortly present you why and how Lahti became the European Green Capital, and how we see as one of the leading environmental cities on what we do and how we move forward. And I also am very happy that this planetary health approach is now very much getting a very concrete plan moving forward with Lahti plan. I'm very happy and honored that this takes place, and it's a natural step on our path to become even more sustainable and more leading environmental city. So may I now share the screen with you with some slides. Let me see here. Yep, like here. And let me see this one like this. Can you see it now? Is it good now? Jana, looking good?
Now it's okay.
And
now
we can see the following slide as well.
Ah, it's too bad. I don't know why. But it doesn't. Is this this one? I don't care. So you can see the next slide too. Doesn't matter as long as you can see it. So Lahti is representing actually the huge majority of European cities. Being a mid-sized city, most of the Europeans live in the city like Lahti. So between 100,000 and 300,000 people. Lahti 120,000 and an urban region of 200,000. So we as Lahti represent the majority of the European urban life, which is a very interesting aspect actually. And I don't know why it show, you can also see the next slide, but it doesn't really matter. So my question is how Lahti became the European Green Capital, how this a very average city, a European city, has become the one of the European leaders in sustainable urban development and all things related. That is a good question, and my short answer is with very long-term and ambitious work. And my first thing is, of course, that if you start early, you get far. Many cities have asked us what to do. We say, start doing something. So move forward. And I think this is very small because somehow it's only in my other screen, very big one, but I hope you can see it. So If you can't see it, I will just go through it. But some things what we have done is that we have reduced our CO2 emissions by 70% already now. Now moving forward to be carbon neutral. We have encouraged sustainable mobility. We have municipal waste solutions. We don't have a landfill anymore. Only 1% of our municipal waste is not either reused or recycled. So we don't need a landfill anymore. Almost 100% of our waste is reused or recirculated. We have decreased phosphorus content in the lake Vesijärvi. You can see the beautiful lake, which is, somebody said Lahti is like a paradise. Looking this picture, you might even think so. Also, decreasing energy consumption in schools, daycare, and our whole city system. We have reducing Lahti's energy carbon emissions, so moving away from coal, moving away from fossil fuels, and then improving air quality in the city significantly. And here you can see actually some of the facts and figures on your left side corner. CO2 emissions, how we have since 1990 been able to reduce them significantly. Energy consumption, district heating production, the black one is coal. Today, no fossil fuels in our energy system. And being an Arctic city, you know, heating production is a vital part of the city structure. And then utilization of the municipal waste, you can see that black, or 2007, we still had half of our municipal waste were not reused or recycled, now only 1%. And moving forward, share of sustainable urban mobility, that's our big target next, how we can do that. And regarding the discussion what you just had, the big question is now, will people come back to the public transportation after the COVID-19 moves away? So this is right now we have far less passengers in the public transportation that we have had before, but let's see how it moves. Air quality, phosphorus concentration, and also the conservation areas around in the city are growing, amount of them. So we say, and that is very important for today's discussion, we think we are committed and we fully understand that well-being actually comes from the nature. It's very much related on how we do our sustainable life, what we are creating. So we are seeking ways to emphasize the importance of nature to support health and well-being. This link, Lahti is in a very beautiful landscape between forests and lakes. So understanding that this has an effect on our health and well-being, the nature, the status of a nature, environment, and what is the condition of it and how we relate it with it. Making nature more accessible, it's actually a quality question. Everybody should have an access to nature, and everybody should be able to enjoy the great effects of being close to nature. And then, of course, long-term program being developed with local citizens. Engaging people is crucial for any sustainable model or any sustainable urban development. And if the mayor says something, somebody might listen, most don't. But if the local sports heroes, cultural heroes, key influencers speak about it and make people to understand the relationship, it's much more efficient. Our themes as a European Green Capital, we have 4 themes: carbon neutral life, citizen participation, circular economy, and nature and water, which is the biodiversity especially. So we are concentrating on 4 themes and understanding that we have to create a carbon neutral life. Without people's engagement, nothing solid and sustainable will not happen. And then circular economy and larger green economy, how it's also good for business and other development, and nature and water, how our relationship with nature and how we get the benefits and well-being from biodiversity and nature. As a green capital this year, We are especially concentrating on smooth everyday life, contributing to well-being once again. Functioning and sustainable cities are very important. How cities are both functioning and sustainable. I sometimes say function and fun, but also today, of course, sustainable. And visibility of the green capital. We are very happy for the city like Lahti. Not Barcelona gets a lot of visibility anyway. Lahti, not that much. But this year we have received a lot of TV groups and global media, which has been great for the city in general. So our next target, now being a European green capital, is already around the corner. Lahti wants to be to become the European one of the first cities to be carbon neutral, and we know we are on that way already. So by 2025, and dear friends, that's tomorrow, Lahti will be carbon neutral if we just follow the path we have now taken. And it's a great target, but also it's related to the larger ambition of moving forward, being there rather first than last. But anyway, very ambitious goal for us. This is very small, but only saying them, delivering the message that this is change is an endurance sport. Keep on doing, I might say. And I'm very happy that part of our path forward and part of our drive as one of the leading environmental cities is that we are now emphasizing more and more together with the healthcare organizations, together with social organizations, together with science, which is very important. We are also actually a university town, by the way, but pushing forward with Lahti plan now to really understand, experiment, research, do activities, and understand in a deeper way how our well-being basically is built, and how our relationship with nature and the status of nature and our environmental activities and actions actually have an impact to our well-being and health. And I think that is something that really thrills and inspires me also to move forward as one of the leading green cities in the world. So thank you for your kind interest, and sorry for the slides if they came from the different point of view, but I'm convinced that you got the message from Lahti.
So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We're delighted to have this presentation introducing to the very active commitment of the municipality and the people of Lahti. I'm Antoni Plasencia. We will move now to the second speaker, and then we will take questions and open a discussion. So please remember to write your questions through the chat. I'd like to introduce the second speaker, Silvia Casorran. Silvia, welcome. Silvia Casorran is Deputy Chief Architect in the Barcelona City Council. She is also the Councillor for Mobility and Accessibility in one of the districts, in the Sant Martí districts in Barcelona, where, by the way, the Superblocks initiative that Mark was referring to has been introduced. And she's had in the past different responsibilities regarding bicycle mobility in the metropolitan area, so beyond Barcelona, and also regarding bicycle mobility in cities network. And her training is in environmental sciences and also in urban planning. So thank you very much, Silvia, to join us in this dialogue around the role of policy and politics. Over to you then.
Good afternoon, Antoni and everyone. It is a big pleasure for me to share with you this time and to talk a little bit about Barcelona, Although Mark already introduced some news about us, well, I will try to share my screen. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna talk especially about what the city did during the COVID to get more space for sustainable mobility. But I will mention also some other initiatives that we were working already with, like super blocks or the project of protecting the schools. That means putting the kids in the center of the urban planning. As Mark said, Barcelona is a very high dense city. I think we are the second in population, just after Paris. But when we refer in terms of vehicle per square kilometer, we are the first one in Europe. So this means big congestion and big problems caused by traffic. Well, just in the beginning of January last year, Barcelona had the declaration of climate emergency. The motto was, "This is not a drill." And yeah, 2 months later, with the total lockdown, it was clear that this is not a drill, this is real. And climate emergency is causing problems as health emergency and these pandemics. So what did we do during the COVID? First of all, we tried to, when the lockdown was finished, starting to be finished, we tried to open more spaces, especially for active mobility, for walking and for cycling. Also because people couldn't move, first of all, 1 kilometer from home. Then afterwards, we couldn't move from the city. So it was very important for us to get more space to walk and to cycle because, as I mentioned, this is a very high dense city. So the lack of public space is crucial, and especially when we had to be all of us at the same time walking at the streets at the period that we could get out from home. And here you see our mayor in the center, Ada Colau. To the left, you see our deputy mayor, Janet Sant. And to the right, you see our mobility councillor. They were here introducing the first measures, the COVID measures, to open, to get more space for pedestrians. And these are some images from the tactical urbanism that were implemented during this period. They were very fast, and of course, we know the municipalities and local bodies are always very slow in implementing things, but this time, thanks to COVID, some measures then arrived faster than normally. Of course, they were low-cost measures, and as you can see, they were just very simple, mainly just paint, but they were very important to create these extra spaces, to keep also the distance, the social distance that it was needed for COVID. We tried even to get some green from the asphalt, which is a big challenge. You see here also one piece of green. Now we've got a tree here. And we also had new bike lanes. First, we painted them in yellow because of the emergency, but then afterwards we decided that they were staying more time, so it was not needed, the yellow anymore. And very simple measures were also closing at the streets where the sidewalks were narrower than 2 meters. Then all the streets were directly closed to allow the people walking in the center of the streets. And then also in the big avenues, we also closed the streets to allow the people to walk safer. Then the second measure that was taken was during the weekends, especially, we are closing like very big avenues to all traffic, and they were only meant for pedestrians and cyclists. And the nice thing is that some of them, like I will show you now, like this one in Sants and another one in Gracia, they are now staying all the weekend, during all Saturday and during all Sunday, and they are meant just for pedestrians and for cyclists. And the people are really using this new space. Then the third measures was creating more bike lanes. One of these very important one was this 5 kilometer bike lane, because it is in this street. In Barcelona, we still have this kind of streets or highways that are crossing the city. And in this case, in this lane to the right, we've got now this bike lane. And we also got this new one that is connecting the city to the Zona Franca, which is the industrial area from Barcelona. It's very big with 40,000 employees. So yeah, the cycling network has grown almost 30 kilometers during this period. But it's also working, yeah, we are expanding the network also with some more kilometers, because we see the amount of cyclists and also e-scooters is increasing a lot during the pandemic, but also before, but now it's like very, very much. And we've got a problem now of capacity. So we really need to expand the bike lanes, but also make them wider to make them more comfortable and safer. And we see all kind of users in the bike lanes, also different speeds. So we need wider bike lanes to go in front and to keep safe also during the cycling. Another measure that was taken was putting new terraces for the bars and restaurants. And we especially tried to get a space from the cars to give it to the bars, not also because of the pandemic, but the space of the pedestrian in Barcelona is not that big, so it was no sense to put the terraces on the sidewalks. And now these pictures are from this morning. We are now developing these soft measures for the terraces into new prototypes, and these are the ones that are placed today in Barcelona. They are putting now the greening, so it's not totally nice yet, but tomorrow they will be on place. Yeah, of course, we had a communication campaign to promote walking and cycling and also using public transportation. And what I mentioned is that before the pandemic, we were already working, of course, with these kind of measures. One of them, a very important one for the city, is the protection of the environment from the schools for both pollution, noise, but also accidents reasons. In 2019, we had a boy of 5-year-old that was killed in front of his school. And now we've got the commitment of traffic calming to 100 schools in Barcelona with these kind of measures that have been implemented already. They are working also for the pandemic, because of course when we get more space to wait for the kids and to enjoy from the street, so we can keep also the distance. These spaces are also used by the neighborhood, not only by the families from the schools, but it's also widely used by neighbors. So so it's not only used during the school time or during the entrance, but also during the whole day. And you see here the map of the plan of the actions that are already implemented and the ones that are coming this year. And by 2023, we expect to have these 200 schools. But in total in Barcelona, we've got something like 600 schools, so it's still a long way to go to pacify all the schools. But this is really nice because, as you can see at this image, schools are spread all around the city. So when we really calm the streets where schools are placed, in fact, we are traffic calming most of the city. So that's really nice. The maximum speed in these streets is 20 kilometers per hour when it's not a basic road, and 30 kilometers per hour when it's a primary street. Then, of course, I need to talk to you about the superblocks. I live in one superblock myself, in the one in Poblenou, and I live the process in a very intense way. It was quite hard in the beginning, but we are lucky that we're happy that we could cope with it, and that now it's a reality, and Barcelona is going for more superblocks. Well, this is just to introduce you the superblocks model and why we need it. This is Cerda plan. It was from 19th century, and it was really nice because it was planning the city from a health perspective, connecting the old town with the different old towns in around. And this is what he planned. It was green areas inside the blocks. The blocks were not so high as they were in the end. And outside, of course, there were only tramways and carriage and horse carriage. Then the cars, of course, came in the last of the century, and also bikes. But this is what we got. We got all the inside blocks should be totally green, and they are mostly urbanized. So we got an area, a quite big area, the first district of the city center, with no green at all. And all the streets that they are 20 meters wide, they were during last year totally dedicated to cars. And of course, and the density, there was also higher than it was expected. So what did we got? A lot of air pollution, a lot of noise, use of a space that is not equal, because it's like more than 60% of the public space is dedicated to cars, while only 20% of the people from Barcelona move by car. We're getting traffic accidents, more than 10,000 accidents per year, and of course, climate emergency. When we talk about air pollution and about noise, it's really interesting, the studies from ISGlobal, because they really put numbers with this. Now, we can say in Barcelona city, we've got more than 1,000 deaths that earlier than they should be. And when we talk in metropolitan numbers, then it's more than 3,000. And to put numbers to these impacts is very important, because then it's easier to communicate. And of course, politicians get conscious about this. And with noise, we didn't count it until now, but we know now that 130 people in Barcelona are also dying every year from noise effects. So that's also a quite important impact. And this is the air we are breathing in Barcelona, you can see. And it's during the pandemic time, so probably it's worse. It was worse before. So what do we need? We need less car traffic. We need to transform the urban model. And that's what we call it Superilla Barcelona. And this is the city that we want. And yeah. Sorry, maybe I need to connect my battery, but well, I try to run. And well, just images from Superilla Poblenou. This was the previous situation. I will pass you now some images from the previous situation and the situation that we got after the Superilla was implemented. This is mostly made by tactical urbanism, as you can see, just paint and flexible furniture. You can see here, there was no tree at all at this street, only lanes for cars. Now we've got benches, we've got trees, we've got tennis table, we've got playgrounds in the middle of the crossings. Now in this place, we've got this is not tactical urbanism anymore. This is an intervention, a hard intervention, but it's also very important for the green, because tactical urbanism with green, they are not really matching together. And we've got new animals in the super block.
Someone's battery ran out, I guess.
Yes, I think she had a problem with the batteries. I don't know, let's wait for 30 seconds if she's able to plug in. And then otherwise, Jana, I would ask you to continue, and then maybe Sylvia will bring her additional insights, because it's almost the time that we had allowed for her presentation.
Yes. I think in the meantime, we could take a question for Tari and Mark that we had got beforehand. And that is related about the mental health and the nature. Because the importance of mental health has been increasing within Europe, all over. There is a questions about what are your thoughts on including mental health in your visions of planetary health? And if Tari and Mark, you would like to tell your views on this.
Yeah, no, I think mental health is an extremely important issue. I mean, even during COVID, we've seen it increasing again. We know that the green space actually can reduce poor mental health problems. I mean, we've seen it study after study. I mean, we're ourselves been involved in many different studies. Particularly the visits to green space seem to be helping, but also be able to see green space from your window already may reduce mental health problems. We think it's through mechanisms of restoration, stress reduction, but of course there may be other mechanisms as well behind it. So, but we know it's essential, and unfortunately many cities don't have enough green space, and I think that's one of the reasons why we see poor mental health in cities actually. So that's one of the reasons why we hope that the cities will be greening more to counteract the poor mental health that we see, that including like anxiety, depression, etc.
Yes, and maybe as a follow-up for Tari, who is MD, do you think that nature could be a prescription for mental health problems also?
I certainly think so. Some of the recent data indicates that the same kind of a low-grade inflammation also prevails in the brain tissue than what we see in lungs or in our mucosal membranes or in gut or skin. So it's the same mechanisms are working there. Then also it's important to understand that these mental health problems in urban environment, what we are now speaking about, they are not very severe. They are not very deep psychotic depression or bipolar disorders or schizophrenia. They are kind of a mild depression and anxiety. Mild depression and anxiety, and that is very prevalent among young citizens, young people. And I think that really the green prescription would help that. If these people start to exercise in nature, if they reduce the use of processed food, they change their diet to have more vegetables, fruits, and all that would help. There are, however, there are no real studies looking the cause and effect. There are several studies looking the associations, and there is no question that the associative studies indicate that that the greenery and the depression or lack of greenery, they go together. But to show the cause and effect, we need interventions, and we are at the moment lacking controlled interventions.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Since Silvia, I think you're back with us. Your camera is off. We understand you had an energy problem, but very briefly and without the slides. Can you just finalize or share with us your final message, and then we'll move on to the questions and answers. So over to you, Silvia.
Yeah, just my final message is that, of course, cities are working and we are working hard, but there's still so much to do, and the bad impacts of mobility, they are still there, and we are still coping with them. So we need to be very much ambitious and be faster. I mean, because people are dying every year, and this is not a joke. And of course, it's not only about health, but also about climate emergency. And so, yeah, that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry about I had to move from the place, and excuse me.
Thank you. Over to you, Jana.
Thank you. We have got some more questions from the audience, and I would like to ask all the speakers to open up the cameras and be ready to answer to these questions. There are actually few that have already been answered to in the Q&A. For example, there was the questions about how big percentage from the Lahti city budget is annually spent to keep Lahti city a healthy city. And would you like to briefly comment on that, Pekka, please?
Yes, it's very important question, because in today's system, Finland is a very exceptional country. Municipalities and cities have their own income tax and economically independent, and we also take the major responsibility of covering the costs of the social healthcare and social care systems. So Lahti's budget, 120,000 people, is close to 1 billion euros, and our health and social care budget is over 400 million euros annually. This might change in 2023 when there might be a new system how it will be funded and run. Even though after that, also promoting well-being and health will still be a city's responsibility, but not on that economical scale.
Thank you. And then there are questions about engaging citizens. I think there are both directed to the scientists, how the scientists could engage citizens into their work, and what are the key implementation research questions that should be answered. And also after that, we could take a comment from the city representatives about how to engage citizens to the actual actions that are provided. But should we go to the scientists first?
I think it's extremely important to engage the citizens, and also for us as scientists, there are now more grants actually that you actually can involve citizens for the things you would like to do. Here at ISGlobal, we've got a project called Cities Health, what is a citizen science project, where we work with people in different cities around Europe, including Barcelona, to address their problems. Here in Barcelona, the issue is air pollution and mental health. So we involved them there. We've been doing some work here also with the schools. We're just publishing a paper where we're working with kids from 40 schools, where they were putting out air pollution tubes, so they got to know better their environment. I think it was one of the things that led to the Protegim Escola project. I mean, what was involved there as well, knowing that there was a lot of air pollution around, but involving these people is extremely important, I think. Now, Barcelona is pretty good, and Sylvia can comment on this because there's a lot of participatory work going on. But I think for us as scientists, right at the beginning, what are the questions? It's very important to involve people right on the ground. And I think you see more and more citizen science projects that are extremely important, and also for designing what kind of cities we actually would like to see. There's much more involvement.
Sylvia, would you like to continue on that from your point of view?
Yeah, well, the science work is really important to let people know what's really happening. And before ISGlobal had these results some years ago, we couldn't say how much people were dying every year from pollution. So that's really important also to make people conscious about it, not only politicians but also the citizens. And as Mark mentions, the Let's Protect the Schools is an important program, but people are asking for more and more, for more ambition, because they see that the results of the project, okay, we get some more space for people, but pollution is still there. Of course, pollution is not something we will get rid of if we don't get rid of really a lot of cars. So it's really nice the citizens movement now. There's now called School Rebellion, Revolta Escolar, and it's becoming very popular. And the schools are protesting every 2 Fridays. They cut the streets in front of their schools, and they are really getting empowered because they know they have to ask the city to protect their health. So they are really getting through this, and I think that's very important also to push policies and politics to to be more ambitious.
Thank you. And also Pekka Timonen shared some ideas about how to engage the Lahti citizens. You had an example of making the Lake Vesijärvi water clean, and that was kind of the idea came from the citizens, if I understood correctly, but perhaps you want to open up something about that.
Yeah, I might even say the story of Lahti, as I already said, to become a very important environmental city, started with the cleaning of the lake. People's initiative, people said, this is too much, we have to do something. And then the city businesses, people, associations, everybody got their act together and cleaned the lake. So tangible, very tangible result. We can do it, we can change the city better. So what we are doing even more after that is normalizing environmental activities. They are not a special program or a special thing. They are integral part of making the city better. As normal as cleaning the streets or running schools. It's nothing special. It's necessity, but nothing special. And then people's involvement and engagement is important. And I must stress the importance of schools and children. We have lots of examples when children go home and educate their parents, and that's how it works. So we have very wide environmental programs in schools, and that's a very crucial group of people are the children and the education system. And then thirdly, public speakers. So the public profile is not only the mayor or politicians. We have involved, and they have done it very in a positive way, local sports heroes and cultural heroes who say, yes, we work for the carbon neutrality, we work for the biodiversity. Yes, we want to make the city better. So I only quite often, as a mayor, my kind of a message is that a sustainable city is a better city. It's not enough if the science only shows that the numbers are better. It has to be a better city. And I think the Barcelona pictures also show that those have to feel better.
Thank you. I have, there's the questions from the audience to Silvia, but I'd like to extend the questions also to Mayor Timonen. The question mentions that you've shown some of the interventions, the short-term interventions that have been undertaken around the COVID. And the question is, what is your perception on what measures you think may need to be removed and what measures will remain and perhaps might be upscaled or upgraded in more permanent way? And along that question also to both of you is, how do you deal from the political standpoint to somehow the short-term disruptions for the long-term successes, and this also from the point of view of course of the involvement of citizens. So over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Oops.
No, I was just saying, Silvia, you go first.
Okay, thanks, Pekka. Well, about the tactical interventions, they are staying, all of them, but they are upgrading, as you mentioned. They are becoming permanent, and now we are putting 40 million euro to implement the axes that were implemented in a tactical way, to make them really nice and to put a lot of green, because that's the challenge in the city, to become healthier, to get more green. And as I said, the tactical urbanism has this limit, or this it's difficult to combine it with more green. Also because of the maintenance, it's much more difficult. It has to be manual. What else? What was the with short term and long term? That's a very important issue, because I think politicians in general, we are used to short-term interventions and to think of short-term issues. And when we relate to climate emergency, we need really long-term measures, and we need a commitment from all different parties, from all different opinions to work together in the same direction. And of course, we've got a lot of alliances, international, but it really seems that they are not working enough. And every time we have to discuss with politicians, all kind of measures that are going in the direction that we all should go, and they shouldn't be on the table on the discussion table. They should be a total agree of these kind of actions. So yeah, we need to keep on working, and of course the citizen power is very important to really push all these measures in the good direction. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. Also, of course, the political sphere is something which is a reality. So I think it's very important, and one of the several difficult issues in our city too. One is, of course, that in politics, people and our politicians also need so-called low-hanging fruits. So we talk about long-term goals, but also it's very important to show and communicate, and the political system can communicate some of the short-term results and kind of low-hanging fruits. So we can communicate that we are moving forward. So this is kind of a balance, and sometimes there are even collisions and fights, and some of the short-term issues are not very much in line with the long-term issues. But I think as a mayor, I of course try to keep the big picture. That it doesn't matter if one or two issues sometimes go in a slightly different way. The second thing is, but it's still very interesting. I just looked for Barcelona's examples, and we are having our city council just accepted a traffic plan for the city center, how to make the center more accessible and better, and actually leave the traffic out from the city center. A very hot debate, and still very, very much debate on that. So it's not easy. And then thirdly, I might say that it is something that in this discussion also I've been thinking is how we bring in the scientific knowledge into political sphere and cities development sphere in a way that it is understandable and digestible. It's preaching religion to those who already believe is something which is quite natural, but in this matter we have to do something else too. And then to finalize, what happened during the COVID is very important. Not only that cities, of course, have new issues and even challenges, but the world has taken a very big step towards more sustainable politics and more sustainable environmental issues. European Union Green Deal, President Biden's government in USA, even some Chinese in the government of China has step out with the very, very ambitious goals. And look what the money does. Business is very rapidly right now adapting and speaking about green economy and the business models around that. So COVID actually might even be now a kind of a watershed for many things. It looks like it now.
Thank you. Pekka was referring to the communication between politicians, decision makers, and scientists. And I would like to now ask Mark and Tari, how have you seen the communication with the decision makers in your work, and what could be done better there? Because that is clearly something that needs to be fluent.
You want me to go first? I think we because of our work, because of our interest, we work quite a bit with in particular on the city council, and also here we've got 5 different layers of governments dealing with urban and transport planning. So it becomes complicated. We're trying to bring in the half argument into urban and transport planning, and we've got quite a lot of contact with particularly the technical people, but also some more for the political. I mean, and trying to provide evidence. What Sylvia mentioned, what we've brought in is the health argument more by providing numbers. So we try to engage with them, but we know also it's very hard to make changes because, you know, people don't want to make changes. I mean, it's this typical example, trying to get the cars out of the city center. I mean, it's amazing how many people are against that. Because people don't like change. I mean, and even if it's going to be better, I mean, I see it here in Barcelona, a lot of the retail sector are so against it, getting the cars out. And actually, it's most of the studies that have been done before show it's much better for the retail sector to sell more if you don't have cars in your streets. I mean, that. But and then also if the citizens, they're concerned that they can't drive their car to their house, although they only use it so sometimes. That. So I think what we're trying to do is engage and provide and make the information that we have, the scientific information, in a very simple way that we can go to politicians, decision makers, and particularly what we find technicians, because that's where the level where sometimes it goes in, the new information, so that actually can be used. Still, it would be nice to have more often regular meetings, but we know also that, you know, the politicians and decision makers are super busy as well, and they don't only have this to deal with, but many other issues. But I believe that if you base your decisions on good science, probably you can get further with them than if you just make randomly decisions. And the most important thing, what we talked before, is also get the citizens on board. So you need to put the information in such a way that's easily digestible. Now, the one thing I must say, what I still see too often, also like here in the Barcelona City Council, that you got too many silos. In a way, you've got more urban planners here, transport planners there, you've got environment people here, public health people there, and they even don't talk to each other. Sometimes we're in meetings, we have people bringing people together to talk to them, to bring them together. It's the first time they meet, I mean, rather than within the city council. What always surprises me a little bit, but I guess, you know, everyone is super busy and doesn't have always enough time to come together. And as soon as you find a common goal or someone organizes meetings, you see that solutions are coming out of it. From my perspective, it's got something to do with training, because often what you see for transport planners, they want to get people as fast as possible from A to B. And it doesn't, for them, it's not always, how do I get the person from A to B in the most sustainable and healthy way? And I think that's not being brought into the curriculum for much of the training courses. And, you know, it's one of the reasons I go to transport planning, transport professional conferences, urban planning conferences, to enrich the discussion.
Yes, thank you. The transdisciplinary work is obviously something that we all need to improve in. How about Tari? You have a long career. What sort of examples do you have in mind?
Well, I very much agree with Mark. We are in different silos, and that's also because of the education. For example, the medical discipline, the doctors, the clinicians, they are used to think patient by patient. Patient comes and knocks the door, and the patient has a problem. Let's solve the problem. And then the next patient. They are not educated to work with environmental people or take a few steps back and see the bigger picture. But they are intelligent people, they are clever people, they can be educated to do that. And I must then say that if I take my really long experience as a clinician, I have really been taking patient by patient for years and years. And the best politicians and the best relationships I have been able to create are my patients. Patients who happen to be politicians. When they have their own experience, when they do have their own experience, then there is no problem of the medical discipline and the doctor to speak with the politician. And that's highly interesting also in that respect, that the way to to get the environmental people and the architects and city planners and the doctors, the medical discipline together is really to appeal to health, because we are very selfish. We are selfish because that's we want to survive, and so we are interested mainly in ourselves, then our children and family, and then a little bit bigger society. And that is why intuitively health is a card which you really should use. And in that way, most of the people listen and they have a positive attitude. Okay, this might be something important for me and my family because they are speaking about health. And environmental people, that's also my experience, that in Finland, environmental people, they understand this. They understand and they use this. They use this health card. But then when you go to the medical discipline, they are more conservative. They need more education. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we now heard the both sides. Tari saying that the medical people are not educated in environmental issues, and Mark say that the technical people are not educated in public health. So maybe there is something in the education system that we could also try to improve and bring the transdisciplinary issues also there. We have also one question for ISGlobal actually. Someone has asked, I wonder if ISGlobal is in favor of implementing congestion charge schemes in big cities like Barcelona, similar to those in London, Singapore, Milan, Stockholm, or some Norwegian cities. It might be a question of some years to have it implemented in Barcelona, first city in Spain, with this scheme. I wonder if Antoni is the one who could take this one.
Thank you. Actually, ISGlobal, what we do is try to promote the support to the researchers like Mark in this case, who gather the evidence, who generate the evidence, and who take the time. And we are very proud of that to precisely go beyond the papers and work for the impact in interaction with all different stakeholders. So I would pass on the question to Mark, not that institutionally we avoid this question, but rather because I think before talking about that, it's good to know about what is the evidence available regarding the impact of such an approach, such policies, and then eventually use, as we are using oftentimes, this alliance of this virtuous circle of evidence, of technical knowledge and political commitment to make things move. And this is what together in Barcelona we are trying to contribute to. So Mark.
Yeah, I think in general, I think what we would like to reduce car use, private car use in particular within the city, improve air pollution, noise, etc. And experience says it's most of the time not one measure that does the trick. You need to have a number of different measures, a whole policy package, and then maybe 10, 20 different measures. And probably congestion charge and maybe one of them, but it has also its drawbacks as well, I think, because then you may have people that actually can afford to pay, will pay. At the moment we have already a little bit of congestion charging because people that come through the tunnels above Idrera have to pay 4 or 5 euros to come into the city, and it doesn't stop them coming into the city. So my personal perspective is more trying to reduce the space that is currently there for cars in the city, reduce that so there is no space for cars to come in. And that, I think, is a better way. At the moment, it seems to be that people believe that it's a God-given right to drive wherever there's a road. And it's a funny concept, actually, when you think about it a little bit more. So perhaps we shouldn't have the roads for people to drive, but to have this public space that we can use for other activities. I mean, and we've seen during the pandemic that there's a real shortage of space for people to walk, to cycle, to just play, for kids to play out, you know, that safely on the streets. I mean, and so my preference and what I've seen from other places is try to reduce the space that cars can use, make it space that people can use, and that may be a better way to keep get your objective. But I mean, it may be a combination of the two, the congestion charging, but there are many different measures that I think that you need to put together. But and also, how easy is it to implement from a political perspective? I think, I mean, what we see in Barcelona, there are quite a few in favor, others are against it, and it becomes one of these issues that it's sometimes hard to take a decision. But Sylvia may have some further insight in this. Not sure if you want to share, Sylvia.
Yeah, well, I totally agree that it's a combination of measures. In Barcelona, we've got already the low emission zone, which is a metropolitan measure, and it could be converted into a toll, into a congestion charge. But as Mark mentioned, the most important fact is that we get less space in the city, less space for parking, less space for driving, and that's the way for sure we will get less cars. Of course, we are working with this already, with for instance, all the parking at the streets is being regulated, and in the end you are getting less space, and of course no free parking anymore. But yeah, as Mark was mentioning, it's a balance, with different measures. For instance, we are now connecting the tramway, which is connecting 9 municipalities in the metropolitan area. We still need some other measures, with public transportation and so on. But the really nice fact is that 93% of trips in metropolitan area are less than 10 kilometers. So they could be done by bike if we had the infrastructure in the metropolitan area, I mean. So that's a big potential still to go. And of course, today is the International Bike Day. And I really think that's in Barcelona, with our compactness, that's a really potential mode of transportation, and we really need to go for it.
And if I may add something to what you have said, is that it's a very this congestion charges are a good example of in a political sphere, discussions usually quite easily polarize. I'm for and this one is against, as Silvia very well known. But actually there are no silver bullet that just solves certain problems, but it's always a combination of several activities and actions that are done. And it's very important that when we do these things, the goal, kind of a result, what we are trying to achieve is quite clear. So right now, it doesn't matter what city, what size and where. In Lahti, we have exactly that same discussion right now. We were investing a lot to the new bike lines. And then there is a new plan that the city center, that actually the space for cars will be narrower now when the new main bike lines are ready, and also the public transportation system will be developed. But still, the same discussion. All cities right now are facing how to do this. And it's very difficult actually for a political sphere to communicate the vision. This is how the city center and the city will look and feel if we are able to make this. Because it has to be a better city for people. Then they will accept even some things that narrow their civil rights or their right to go whatever railroad they decide to go. But it's difficult to sell if the price, which is a better city, is not very clearly visioned and communicated.
Thank you. We have barely 5 minutes for the closing remarks. Yes, Professor. Yes, Professor Hatella.
Just comment that if we go back to the public health issue, well, we have been there all the time, but then nevertheless, the key issue is food, and the key issue is processed food. It's too many, we are eating too much processed food. In fact, dead food. We are eating dead food. We are drinking dead water. We are touching dead asphalt and beton. And we are inhaling and breathing toxic air. So that's a bad combination, and we know the result. So the key issue is, of course, this mobility issue is very, very important. But then how to make the cities green, how to take people to grow maybe something by themselves, vegetables, fruits, roots, something in their backyard. It could be very small, but in balcons, in roof terraces, and so forth. We should, and in that way, if we promote this, it becomes more and more natural that you cannot drive with cars around as we have used to do. And when you want to know a kind of a city of example, go to Havana, go to Cuba, to Havana. They did not plan anything. They grew their own vegetables and fruits and roots because they were so poor. They had to do that. But in fact, that has become really the instrumental part of the city picture there. So that is we have to take these things together.
Thank you. We will take this as your final summary sentence, if you allow us, and then I will ask, so Mark and the rest, by order of intervention, can you summarize a little bit your message in 1 minute?
I think cities are great places to live, but I think there's opportunity to improve them. And I think we can improve particularly the health of citizens in cities by improving the current urban and transport planning. And, I think it's a hard job, but I think I see some ways forwards, but we all have to do it together. And I think try to convince everyone, as what Pekka said, for, provide a vision, because sometimes we don't have the vision in a way, what it's going to be like. I mean, for me, one of the nicest things was to go visit Vauban in Freiburg, this car-free neighborhood, and just walking around. It's amazing. Send everyone there to what it feels like to be in a car-free neighborhood, and you want to live there, I think. Unfortunately, it's a bit difficult at the moment because the house prices are super high now. Everyone wants to live there, but it gives you a good example, I think, and that's what we need. I'm sorry, I need to run straight away as well because I'm chairing another meeting at 3 o'clock. So many thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Mayor, your final comments.
My final comments are that sustainable cities are and must be better cities. And also in the public health, understanding that we can, through developing the ways how we plan, run and build our cities, we can create a healthier and better environment.
Thank you. And Silvia?
Well, as we started, this is not as real, and we really need to work together, science, politicians and citizens, to really cope with this climate emergency and this public health crisis. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Jana. Any final comments? And thank you for co-chairing so nicely this session.
Yeah, also thanks from my side. I think it's really nice to hear this discussion, which was really lively, and I'd like to still stress the transdisciplinary work, like Silvia also referred to.
Thank you very much. I think it's been a real pleasure and an honor to participate, to contribute. Remember that there was this politician Bismarck who used to say that politics, like sausages, were something that needed to do somehow not in a visible way. Well, what we're showing today is that precisely that's something from the past, and that politics are done together with science, with, of course, the challenges of every day, and of course the need to involve the citizens and the different technical people and the different stakeholders. So I think it's been a pleasure to make this small step, to share this small step together. Thank you very much, Marina, and thank you very much, Jose Maria and To for the privilege to participate. And on behalf of ISGlobal, also thank you very much for your trust, and you have our commitment to keep pushing and to keep moving from science and from translation for a more sustainable and equitable world, so for a healthier planet. Thank you very much. I think we are now beyond time, or right on time. So I think we need to say goodbye to everybody. Is that so, or Marina?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment shortly that on 8th of November, we are organizing a Planet and People on Planet conference here in Lahti. It will be also an international conference. So I would like to see the continuation of our excellent cooperation also during that conference. And at that time, we are also going to be announcing the Lahti plan in all details. So hope to see you then again. Thanks.
And in behalf of the city, you are warmly welcomed.
Okay. Un minuto. Okay, great. I mean,
Now we can't hear you, Jose.
I can see you. You can hear me now. Excellent, yeah. Great. I think it was extremely well managed and very interesting indeed.
Yes, I think it was nice and good discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. I mean, this is another nice piece of collaboration, Jenna.
Yes, we should continue this. I think, we now know the concept, how to do it.
No, exactly, and it's fantastic to see Pekka so kind with the concept of planetary health. I mean, this is a unique opportunity. I mean,
yes, it's good to take all the advantages of this.
Okay.